Welcome back to U-GeekTV. I'm here with another unapologetic review, and this time we are talking about Bad Boys Ride or Die, starring Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, because who the fuck else is going to star in this movie at this point? Like, if they just start replacing people, that's going to be a bad look. I mean, this is a 20-plus-year-old franchise. Just about anybody is irreplaceable at this point, unless you're Teresa Randall. Yeah, they got her the fuck up out of here. And I don't know why. That's weird. Like, was she not available? But anyway, I digress. Let's get into the review. So by now you know how this goes. I give my verdict and my review on the front end, and on the back end, pause. We talk about spoilers and just some other things that I noticed and observed in the movie. So let's get into it. Bad Boys Ride or Die, for as good as it is, may be my least favorite film in the entire franchise, and I watch all four films back to back, like over the course of a week. At this point, I think it lags behind a little bit against the other three. However, it's a very good time. The action is as insane as it's ever been. Martin Lawrence carried the bulk of the workload in terms of comedy, and he delivers in spades. Like, there are several just really, really funny parts. And in terms of the emotional weight, that all goes on Will Smith, and he does a good job doing what he does. Like, he's a great emotional actor, and it all comes together very well in a nice little package. Not a neat little package, but a nice little package nonetheless. So that gets us to our verdict. Bad Boys Ride or Die surprisingly gets a 3 out of 5 from me. It's not bad. It's also not the best thing I've seen, and when compared to the rest of the franchise, I mean, some of those movies are 4 out of 5s, and I think they're better than Ride or Die, to be honest. Maybe not on a technical level, but just in terms of enjoyment, it's unapologetically all right. So definitely go check it out, but that's just where I land with it. So we've come to my favorite part of this review, where I get to talk about spoilers. If you haven't seen Bad Boys Ride or Die, go to the theaters, check it out. It's worth watching. And come back and listen to the shit I got to say, because I definitely got quite a few things to say about this. So I'll say this right off the bat. The film starts a little silly. We're on our way to Mike Lowry's wedding, and anybody who has followed this character through all of these movies so far knows that's a big deal, because he's the ultimate playboy, but he's also the ultimate homicidal maniac cop. That can cause some issues just in our current political climate, but for now, we'll just sit back and enjoy him shooting the fuck up out the entire city. He's getting married to who appears to be the love of his life, and at the wedding, everything is going smoothly. Mark is out there shaking his ass, making it Paul, making like some funny jokes and stuff, trying to make a speech and all that. He's just doing Marcus Burnett stuff, and then he appears to have a heart attack, and he passes out just in the middle of the reception. We fast forward, he wakes up, and the interesting thing about this is how it plays against like the first 20 minutes or so of Bad Boys for Life. Which, by the way, why didn't they wait for a fourth movie to call it Bad Boys for Life? Like, it kind of throws everything off calling this one Ride or Die, and the title still works here in a way, but it really makes more sense how this is the fourth movie for this one to be called Ride or Die. I mean, not Ride or Die. See, now I'm fucking confused. For this to be called Bad Boys for Life, and the last one to be called Bad Boys Ride or Die, or the previous one. But anyways, they have already acknowledged that they've messed up with the title, so I'll just move on from there. Marcus's near-death experience kind of opens things up for a different dynamic between the team. Now it seems like the roles have flipped, with Marcus coming near the end of the road and Mike Lowry getting married. Marcus has become reckless. He's essentially become Mike Lowry 2.0 at this point, but he's not an improved version. He is also homicidal now and very reckless, but Martin just brings such a funny gravitas to that character now, that he can kind of cut loose and do some of the things that Will Smith has enjoyed doing playing this role so far. And the comedic spin on Marcus taking on Mike's kind of personality in a way is freaking hilarious. I loved Martin's comedic brilliance throughout this entire film, and that should be commended. He was hilarious. On the other hand, for the first time in the entire series, Mike Lowry becomes a little bit gun shy. Why? Because he wants to make it home to his wife. He has something to live for that's beyond him. That's beyond the money and the fame and the clothes, the cars, all of that. He wants to make it home to his wife. And as someone who is married, and I mean, I feel that like your goal is to make it home at the end of the day, which is something that we saw from Marcus throughout all of the films so far. He just wanted to make it home to his wife and his kid. And another thing that plays into this is Armando, who was revealed to be Mike's son in Bad Boys for Life. He cares about his son. He wants his son to be free. He wants to, form a bond with his son, and that really plays into his desire to be more careful and make sure he makes it home. It's a very interesting dichotomy that they introduced into this film, and it shows that, hey, there is still room for these characters to grow. And it's something that I really appreciated about the proceeding. Now, let's get to one of the weaker aspects of the film, and that comes in the form of Eric Dane's character, James McGrath. James is a Army Ranger who was held hostage by the cartel and tortured, and he comes back and really like he's this corrupt son of a bitch who wants to take a ton of money and basically bring Miami PD down with him. And you find out that he was responsible for one of the more significant parts of Bad Boys for Life. In Bad Boys for Life, Armando, Mike Lowry's son, killed Captain Howard, and that's still one of the most shocking plot twists in this entire series. Like, that shit stopped me cold in my tracks when I saw it in the theaters. And I remember seeing that and seeing that Armando makes it out of Bad Boys for Life alive. I remember watching it and just saying, there's no way that this franchise intends to keep this kid around and we're just going to move past him killing a beloved character. I like Armando as a badass action character, no doubt. But him killing Captain Howard was just such a unforgivable thing. I just always thought, look, how are we going to move forward with any other films, knowing that this character took out another beloved character? They addressed it here, and the solution was basically blame the next villain. You find out that James McGrath hit up Armando's mother and had her to add Captain Howard onto the hit list. Now, I'm going to tell you why this kind of works, and it does feel like it was purposely set up by the directors to go this route. In Bad Boys for Life, there was a semi-well-defined hit list of who took down Armando's mother's cartel. They never really say if Captain Howard was on their hit list. And as someone who just saw Bad Boys for Life before seeing Ride or Die, Armando would have had plenty of opportunities to take out Captain Howard. That's what makes it work. It looks like maybe he was a late addition to their hit list. And so now James McGrath is instantly way more hateable because of this. It's just unfortunate that he's not really a memorable villain. As someone who watches Grey's Anatomy, or who has watched it up until a point, like I stopped during the COVID season. That's when it just kind of started dragging out. However, I like Eric Dane. I've seen Eric Dane in Euphoria also. I know that he's capable of being a good enough villain in a film, and feel like he's a little bit wasted here, but you have to make your star shine a whole lot more. And so Will and Martin get the bulk of the screen time, and that's okay. However, it just feels like a waste of Eric Dane. And I thought he probably could have added a little more, but he comes out to be just basically a carbon copy of all the other Bad Boys villains except for Armando, who ends up becoming a hero. Like, even though Armando's mother was a bruja, she still really was like super memorable in terms of being a villain. He took over for Bad Boys for Life. Then she just came in at the end and just suffered a typical villain fate. And that just leads me to really a weakness as a whole for the series. Like, no villains really stand out except for the ones that they plan on being in multiple movies, which again is Armando's case. And Armando gets a lot of good character development. He reconciles his relationship with his father. And it's like he and Mike Lowry have a lot of good moments together, especially when you see that Mike is really taking on the father role as seriously as Mike Lowry can. And he really wants to connect with his son, but it's difficult for him to figure that out. And there's a good moment where they're in this pickup truck together, and it's still comedic, but good nonetheless. Marcus does a great job mediating between the both of them and helping them to kind of come to an understanding of each other. And that pays off later in the film when Mike has to save Armando from Captain Howard's vengeful U.S. Marshal daughter, who we never heard of in the rest of these films. And Armando is the MVP when it comes to saving Captain Howard's granddaughter, like towards the end, who he essentially killed her grandfather right in front of her. If you remember on Bad Boys for Life, he was at his granddaughter's basketball game when he was shot and killed. And so that was a good way to kind of bridge that plot point together with this one. And it does help Armando in terms of becoming more um, of a, I wouldn't say sympathetic character, but a heroic character. However, you still can't right fully forgive him for that. They tried, but it's one of those things like, man, this motherfucker always gonna be the person that killed Captain Howard. It is what it is. But I went into this expecting Armando to have like some badass action scene. But you could not have told me that the show stealer for Bad Boys Ride or Die would have been Reggie, who is Marcus's son-in-law, who is also a Marine. And as the film was going on, there's one part where McGrath sends his men after Marcus's family and Mike Lowry's wife. The tension in this scene is played up very well because Mike Lowry can't get a hold of his wife. And the ring cams are on in Marcus's home so they can see into it. And Reggie is home. He just returned from a tour and he's just enjoying the civilian life. And Marcus gets a hold of Reggie and tell him, look, you got to defend the family and you got to hold it down. And holy shit, Reggie holds it down. Reggie proceeds to kill 15 well-trained Army veterans or Black Ops people or whatever it is. And it makes sense. His kills are so brutal. Like, they went straight to the John Wick school for Reggie's fighting style. He beat the shit out of everybody. He was the MVP, honestly, of the entire film. He held it down, and Marcus just couldn't believe what it was that he was seeing. And this pays off in a joke later on at the end of the film, involving Reggie asking, can he get on the grill and cook some chicken? And when he's turned away by Marcus and Mike, he just stands there and stares at him. It's like one of those things like Reggie is a man now. He wears the pants. He's the baddest mofo out there amongst these men. And they have to show him his respect. And they step away from the grill. I think Mike decides to go and check on the potato salad, and Marcus decides to sit at the table and let Reggie cook the chicken. And it's funny. It's a cool scene that pays off ultimately comedically in the end. And I loved it, man. The Reggie scene is the true standout and the best scene in this entire film for me. Now, to the plot point about Marcus and Mike being fugitives along with Armando, I think it's set up really well. But where I'm disappointed is I've seen other films kind of do this plot point better. I believe there was a multi-million-dollar bounty on Marcus Armando and Mike's head. And basically they made it look like all the gangs in Miami were going to go after them. And when it came time to execute that part of it, because you could have really went with like a John Wick style execution, it kind of feels rushed and it doesn't ultimately pay off. Like it was a badass concept, but it wasn't enough time to fully realize it. So we get to the big finale. Mike and Marcus go to like this secluded former aquarium or something to go check out James McGrath and his men. And it's a, I mean, the firework, the way everything happens in this scene is pretty cool. There's a very cool video game style first person portion where you see things from Mike's perspective and then he tosses the gun to Marcus and you see things from his perspective. And I thought that was a really cool spin on that action. This does have some of the best action in the entire franchise, bar none. I can't take anything away from them on that. And then there's a scene where Mike is kind of figuring out like what it is, why he's having panic attacks, and why he's so afraid of getting shot. And they tied into Bad Boys for Life and very well. He blames himself for Captain Howard's murder, that he was unable to protect him. And him seeing one of his colleagues, one of his friends, or somebody, you know, he really looks up to, die in his arms impacted him in such a way and let him know, hey, we're all human. I can lose anybody. And then this is coming on the heels on Bad Boys for Life, where Mike was actually shot at the beginning of that film. And so that plays really well in this moment. And the comedy is inserted perfectly because he gets the okay from Captain Howard to proceed on like, hey, it's okay, man. You didn't fail me. But then Marcus slaps the shit out of him, calls him a bitch, and he gets Mike amped up. And they both just tear the whole place down. It's very well done. And it culminates in a standoff with McGrath where McGrath has Marcus and Mike's wife at gunpoint telling them to choose. It plays up to Marcus thinking he's essentially immortal because he survived his near-death experience. So when Mike tells him, look, I don't have to make a choice. Somebody in this group can't die. Marcus is like, wait, what the fuck? And now he snapped back and he's kind of scared Marcus again because he's really faced with death at gunpoint. And Mike shoots him because he knows he has a bulletproof vest, causes him to fall, and he lights the fuck up out of James McGrath. And I thought that was a really badass way to kind of settle up the conflict that Mike was going through throughout the film internally and bring our villain to justice. It was very well done. It's just not better than the prior 3 films for me. That's it. So, last point I want to touch on. Let's talk about Will Smith in the slap. I saw a lot of takes just with people being really excited about Bad Boys for Life. I mean, they did it again. Bad Boys Ride or Die. But one take that really jumped out to me was Stephen A. Smith's take before the film release, where he essentially says, because there were like low pre-order numbers for the tickets, that he thought that the film was gonna bomb, and he tried to put it on Black America for not being ready to move on from the slap, which happened 2 years ago at the Oscars. And he wanted Will Smith to come and tell Black America why he did what he did. That's wholly unnecessary. Like, it's 2 years old. It is what it is. That's between him and Chris Rock, to be honest. And that's the only person that he really needs to talk to. But what's really funny is I predicted what Stephen A. was going to do. I said Stephen A. was going to talk to somebody, one of his friends. They were going to go and tell him, hey, you have the wrong take, according to him. And then he was going to come back once he saw that the box office numbers were astronomical. Like, they first made their budget back in one weekend. Once he saw those numbers were astronomical, he was going to walk back everything. Not necessarily apologize, but he's just going to walk back everything that he said. But I also feel like he had a version in his head of if the movie bombed, and he was just going to go on this huge, unnecessary diatribe about how the slap is still affecting everybody in America. I'll be honest, Stephen A., you're not talking to Black people, and you damn sure weren't speaking for us in terms of saying that he needs to come out and explain to us why he did what he did. We moved on from the slap. Will Smith has always been box office, and he came back from the ashes and is box office again. I think this is maybe one of the final chapters when it comes to the slap. We can all move on with the rest of our goddamn lives. And I heard some rumblings about this being the last Bad Boys film. Well, lo and behold, after the returns came back, now I'm hearing rumblings that they're working on Bad Boys 5. So I think we're at least going to get the Bad Boys 7 before they hang this thing up. With all that being said, please, can we please just stop talking about the fucking slap? Jeez. So, Bad Boys Ride or Die, have you seen it? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Continue to like, continue to share, continue to get those subscription numbers up. I appreciate you. And until next time, I'm Jarius, the Unapologetic Geek, and I am out.